When I was 6 years old, it became apparent that I had learning difficulties. I was a very shy girl. I didn't talk very much, and I wasn't learning to read or write properly. But my mother also noticed some very odd behaviors that I would display. For example, she would ask me to follow a set of instructions. Go into the garage, get the beach bag, put the bath towels in the beach bag, and bring them back inside. So as the eldest in the family, I would enthusiastically follow my mother's instructions. Off I would go into the garage. And then I'd stop. I couldn't remember why I was in the garage. I couldn't remember the instructions that my mother had given me. So in the fear of not following through on what I had been asked to do, I would stand there in the hopes that I would remember what I was supposed to do. Well, my mother would come out a couple minutes later and she would find me standing in the middle of the garage, just standing there. And she would say, "Kelly, what are you doing? Why are you just standing there?" And I said nothing because I couldn't remember. She would help me with the task and we would move on. Now, as an educator, my mom knew that something wasn't quite right. So she decided to take me to get tested. Well, it turns out I was dyslexic, or I should say, I am dyslexic, with auditory processing problems. I have a high IQ, but my brain works very differently. So started the journey to help me to reach my full potential, and also to help me to find the right method for my brain to access information and process knowledge. Strategies were put in place. I was given extra time during exams. I was given flashcards with vocabulary words on them so that I could use them in my writing. I was given my spellings early so I had more time to study the words and remember how to spell them. And I could listen to audiobooks while I read the text on the page. By the time I got to the end of primary school, I was making better progress. And that's not to say that there weren't issues and that I didn't struggle. But with the support from my family and my sheer determination, I began to thrive. I began to enjoy subjects like English literature and history, and I had some really inspiring teachers along the way who encouraged me and helped me when I was struggling. And suddenly, going to school did not become a chore anymore. Going to school became fun and engaging and interesting. And then I wanted to learn more. I wanted to read more. I wanted to write more. And as I started to get confidence, I began to develop self-worth. When I was asked to do this talk, I reflected on self-worth, and I reflected on education's responsibility in supporting children to develop to their full potential, whilst also developing their character. Well, what is self-worth? Well, simply put, it's the belief in oneself. A sense of worth is determined by your character, by your values, and also by your perceptions. It requires respect, empathy, and self-evaluation, and I also believe a little bit of wisdom. But you also have to be very aware of yourself, your limitations, and your strengths. And it requires you to examine yourself. But it also needs to be encouraged and explained to you by others. I've been in education for over 20 years. I've worked in the US, the UK, and now China. I have worked in a variety of different schools, and I've come across a variety of different children. But the one thing that remains constant is the need to educate children, to educate them with their character development. Education is not just about academic success. It is about cultivating good people, good human beings who will have an impact on our world. But how do we do that? How do we help make an impact on our world by developing our young children? Well, I believe there are three aspects, three virtues, skills, or attributes that are required. Now, self-worth is one. It will help you to face your challenges. The other two I believe, are empathy and humility. Now, research into general happiness suggests that empathy is the key to a content life. Empathy allows us to be sympathetic, to care, to understand others, and to also have a stronger connection with people. But how do we teach empathy? We teach empathy very carefully. Now, empathy starts to emerge from birth to 5. It's when children have opportunities to play with other children, and it usually is settled by middle school. But in the book, Teaching Happiness and Well-Being in Schools by Ian Morris, he suggests that happiness can be taught and developed through opportunities. Opportunities for teachers and adults to demonstrate the skills. Opportunities to look at ideas and perspectives from a different point of view. Opportunities to learn to listen actively. And opportunities to explore your own feelings. I always say, you need to start with yourself. Know thyself. Now, when I do leadership training on conflict resolution, I ask the team members to do some self-reflection. The idea is that if you know yourself well enough, you can stop focusing on you and you can begin to focus on other people. It helps you to be more empathetic. But that requires you to have humility. Getting to know that you have strengths, but you also have limitations, and understanding that you still have more to learn. Humility is not something we're all born with. Young children are naturally egocentric. We have to support our children, encourage our children, and develop our children. And we have to understand that social and emotional development is important. Success has shown the benefits of humility in general happiness and success in work. There's a couple quotes here up on the screen. I won't read them all, you can read them, but basically the key points in some of these quotes is that humility has a significant impact on lifelong learning. It helps us with our personal development. Through making mistakes, we realize that humility helps us to understand ourselves, and therefore we can focus on others more. And humility can be learned by setting goals, practicing it, and self-reflection. Now, through my research, I came across a list of habits displayed by humble people, or what we're going to call today happy high status. And in the book called How to Own the Room, there is a story about a famous actor at a cocktail party. Now, this actor is standing by the bar, he's wearing a tuxedo, and he's about to get himself a drink. A man comes across the room and approaches him. Now, the first thing we assume is that the man is going to ask for his autograph. Why not? It's a famous actor. It's your opportunity. But no. The man asks the famous actor for a drink. Now, the next thing we assume is that the famous actor is going to turn to the man and say, "Who do you think you are asking me to make you a drink?" But no. The famous actor simply says to the man, "What would you like?" The man tells him, the famous actor makes him the drink, and off the man goes. The famous actor then gets his own drink, and he joins the rest of the party. The actor, you ask? George Clooney. Now, this story highlights my point. George Clooney is one of the most famous actors in the 21st century. You would spot him anywhere, instantly in a crowd. But George Clooney is happy high status. He is humble in his own self-worth, that he is not bothered by being mistaken for a waiter. He has just the right amount of self-worth to know that he is content in himself. So back to how we teach young children to be humble people and become high-status adults. There are 11 habits that are displayed by humble people, and these are in no particular order. The first one, humble people are emotionally intelligent. They're situationally aware of what's going on around them. They help others, and they build and maintain their relationships through that support. They put others before themselves, and they make difficult decisions. They listen, but they actively listen. And I like number 5. They're curious. They know they don't know everything, and they want to find out more. They take action, and they're not afraid to face challenges with determination. They're grateful. A humble person, it's not beneath them to say thank you to someone. They take opportunities for teamwork and collaboration. They accept feedback, knowing that that is the path to self-improvement. And they take responsibility. They own their own part. And last but not least, they're not afraid to ask for help. Again, they want to learn, and they want to continue to learn. These habits need to be encouraged and demonstrated and celebrated when they are demonstrated. In the book, How to Teach Happiness and Well-Being in Schools, the author quotes, "To develop a skill, we need to learn it through experience, practice it in the company of someone who knows how to teach that skill." There are 4 elements to this. We want our children to notice, we want our children to stop, we want our children to look, and we want our children to observe and listen. When we ask them to notice something, we want them to look around at the situation and be aware of how to react. We want them to stop and take a moment and pause. Think about what is the right reaction in this situation. We want them to look, to observe the emotions in other people so they can regulate their own emotions. And we want them to listen. They need to be able to not only explain why they would react in a certain way, but they need to also receive feedback on how to react in a certain way. On the Harrow School website, there's a quote, "The willingness and ability to learn, to lead, and to serve are what enable a life to be both well-lived and worthwhile." I'm going to use another word here, caterpillar. Now, I know that sounds a bit strange, but when we are thinking about what we want to become, we have to think how our actions will help us shape our character. And this is perfectly illustrated in the book, The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. The very colors of the food the caterpillar eats are the colors that are displayed on the butterfly he becomes. Now, to me, this is the key to happiness and success in life. And we owe it to our children to support them to learn, to adopt the habits of humble people and become happy, high-status adults. And even this is more true today. The pictures behind me demonstrate it all. Our world has changed drastically in the last year and a half, and we have to support our children to adapt to an ever-changing world. Now, I had a headmaster that was famous for saying, "The robots are coming." And what he meant by that was that the jobs that humans currently occupy today will most likely be taken over by AI in the future. So we have to show our children how to adapt to an ever-changing world. We need to give them the skills. We need to help them to be humble and have humility and empathy and be competitive in the world that they're going to enter into. They need to be ready to adapt with the right amount of self-worth to make challenging decisions. So I return to my story as a young girl in education. I had to face challenges, and it wasn't without tears and tantrums. There were many of those. But I had to learn to be humble in the fact that I needed support and that I had much to learn. And finding self-worth helped me to become successful. And I finally did. I decided to audition for the elite drama program at my high school, and I got in. I had become successful. And that drama, that took me to education. And today, I am lucky enough to teach teachers to teach children the habits of humble people, to show humility, to show empathy, and to change the world for better. When I was asked to do this talk, I reflected on the anxieties that parents sometimes have when trying to help their children to be successful. And I also tried to think about what would make the audience want to listen to me talk. And I came back to it. We all care about children, and we want them to be happy and successful. So when parents ask me, how do we do it? I simply say, academics are important. Academic excellence will get your child into the top universities. But the social and emotional intelligence that your child gains through the journey will help them be happy, content, and successful human beings. So I ask you, what type of boss would you like to work for? Someone who is trustworthy? Someone who is aware of the emotions around them? Think about their own beliefs separate from someone else's beliefs? Someone who develops their staff, who motivates them and encourages them? Someone who collaborates? And finally, someone who's happy, high status. And then I ask you, think about the skills you want to encourage in your child. Thank you.